Good morning, everyone. We'll be getting started here in just a moment. I'm going to give a few extra minutes for any stragglers to file in, and then we'll kick it off. So thanks for your patience. All right. Howdy, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I know you are busy people, so we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend with us. My name is Taylor Walthall. I am a senior marketing analyst here at LeadsOnline. In just a moment, I'll be bringing our guest of honor on screen after a proper introduction. I'll ask him a few interview questions. If you have any questions for him throughout the session, feel free to leave those in the Q&A panel. There's a button above that you can use to access that. Then at the end of the session, I will be passing the mic to the lovely Lindsay Malone, a customer success manager on our team, to walk you through the LeadsOnline product that our special guest has used throughout his career. So, today's guest, Detective Joe Lyon, is a longtime friend of LeadsOnline and detective at Fort Wayne Police Department in Indiana. He has spent over a decade as the sole operator of Fort Wayne PD's Pawn Detail Unit, recovering more than $2 million in stolen property throughout his career. A key pillar of his success has been building trust with local reporting businesses. And he's joining us today to share the strategies behind those results and how you all can apply them to your own investigative work. So, without further ado, welcome to the stage, the man, the myth, the legend, Detective Joe Lyon.
Good morning.
Hey, Joe. Good
Hey.
morning. Thanks for joining. I'm so glad you're here.
My pleasure.
All right, well, I'll jump right into the questions. And again, as a reminder, if there is anything that you would like me to ask Joe throughout the session, pop those questions into the Q&A panel. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and I will do my best to ask as many as we can fit into our time. So let's get right into it. My first question for you, Joe. Can you tell us a little about your role as a property detective and how you first started using LeadsOnline all those years ago?
So I came up to the Detective Bureau in 2005 and worked a lot of general investigations, everything from domestic to property crimes, a little bit of financial, until I was put directly into the property crimes division. Then in about 2008, November of 2008, we had one guy doing the pawn detail, and he treated that like his own little fiefdom and would not allow anybody to have access to it. But he was never here. He was always marking his time off. So I talked the powers that be into getting me an account with leads, and pretty soon everybody on the floor started just coming directly to me. And I got good at using the system. Then in 2011, we had a street crimes division, which I was part of, which we found useful for me to have an account in LeadsOnline because a lot of our bad guys were using our pawn shops. And again, that other detective was hardly ever there. In June of 2011, he just up and retired. And I was given the opportunity to take over. And once I did, we started enjoying success immediately.
That's incredible. And now here you are. Who would have thought?
Right.
Would lead you to a webinar with me. All right, my next question for you. When did you realize that your relationships with reporting businesses were a real advantage in your investigations, or could be?
Oh, immediately. After that other detective retired, I took the time to go out, introduce myself, or reintroduce myself in some cases, to every business in town that by ordinance had to report to LeadsOnline. Patiently stood by while they told horror stories of the other detective. I made a couple promises to them that I've lived up to. And since then, it's been a wide open two-way street of information back and forth. I think what really helped is I had a business contact me. They were a little hesitant to do so because they had been victimized. And I dropped everything and worked the case all the way through arrest. And that word got out, and because that had never happened before. So when I started treating my businesses with the proper respect they deserved, all of a sudden the communication just opened up. And that was a game changer. As if LeadsOnline itself isn't a game changer, having an open flow of conversation between your businesses on top of LeadsOnline, it opens up doors you never knew existed.
Absolutely. That's excellent. So you mentioned that when you stepped into the role, you went around and introduced yourself to each of the businesses in your jurisdiction. Can you tell me more about that? How do you typically go about introducing yourself? What does that first interaction look like for you?
Well, it's typically it's a personal visit. I drop off a paper copy of the ordinance. show them where in the ordinance it applies to them, explain Leads Online. I use my favorite four-letter word, which is free, to them. That all you have to do is get an account, upload every day. You and I will be good friends after that. I stress to them that I will do my darndest to get them restitution, and that's through the prosecutor's office. Provide them my contact information, both desk and personal, and my email, and tell them, look, anytime before closing, you can contact me. After that, we'll talk in the morning. But I will be as open with you as you are with me. And as long as we're both fighting the same fight and we're above board, we will get along just fine.
I love that. I'm sure they really appreciate it too. So, what exactly do you say to those businesses to help them understand why their reporting matters and why they shouldn't look at it as a chore, and how
Right.
explain how it connects to real case outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we locally in Fort Wayne, we have an ordinance requiring it. And they have to report for different things anyway. So this isn't that hard. In fact, it's easier for them because in a lot of cases, it's just a keystroke at the end of the night and everything gets uploaded. We do have a pretty substantial penalty if you are refusing to do so. I've only had to do that twice in 11 years, and word got out. And so now everybody's on board. When you explain it to them that, look, we sit at opposite ends of the bench, but we're on the same team here. You don't want that stolen stuff coming in. I don't want that stolen stuff coming in. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about that. But let's work together on this, find out who our bad people are, and prevent them from doing it again. And once they start grasping that and they start seeing the success that I'm having, that they're having by turning these people away, once they've realized this stuff's hot, and then they call me about it, it saves them money, saves us time and effort trying to track down somebody because now I already know who the bad guy is. And it's a win-win for both the businesses and the police department and our victims.
That makes perfect sense. Like that's key, explaining why it's mutually beneficial to both you and the business. So it's no secret to you or to this audience that many detectives are stretched thin. How do you make time to nurture these relationships alongside your active caseload on top of everything else that you're doing?
Well, I mean, eventually my caseload does slow down a little bit, and I do take the time then to get out and just pay a quick visit to everybody, say hi. I get to know them. I get to know their stories, their personal life a little bit. If something is bothering them, I can talk to them about it because I'm a totally different human being. I'm not the people they work with, and I'm not part of the problem. So sometimes I can bring a little bit of that counseling expertise that all police officers have to have to discussing that matter with them. I think once they realize that, you know what, I'm human too, that they realize it's okay. This guy's okay. And they want to help and they want to cooperate. They want to be part of the solution.
That's great. All right, my next question for you. Have you ever had a business that was reluctant to cooperate or report consistently? And if so, were you able to bring them around? And if so, how?
Well, what brought them around was we closed them and then the owner went to prison. That opened a lot of eyes um, within the business community and I told them all, I didn't want to have to do that. He brought it on himself. Um, but at the same time, numerous of the businesses that were around his were giving me information and telling me, hey, this guy's not above board. This guy's really not doing it the way it should be done. Um, so that once that happened, new businesses were told about it too, that um, he doesn't play, he'll work with you, but he doesn't play. Um, so it was just a manner to get the businesses all on board at once and going in the same direction, especially after that.
Gotcha. Makes sense that having that expectation set would
Mhm.
kind of have everybody else fall in line.
Yep.
All right. So on the other side of the fence, you've got your problem children, your more difficult businesses to work with. You have plenty that you view as partners that work with you willingly. Have you
Right.
ever gone back to a business to let them know that their report helped you recover stolen property and advance a case? And if so, what kind of impact did that have on them?
I, I do it all the time. My businesses are contacting me, um, sometimes even before the report is made. And with that information, when we have success with it, one of my first phone calls is back to the business and tell them, hey, you guys did one heck of a great job on that. And we've got somebody locked up and we've got a happy victim out there. We've got happy police department because it was easy. You might as well just put a bow on that information and handed it to me. I had a business called me while the bad guy was still in the store and said, "Hey, we just took in a couple items, and we've already got it on hold. And here's all the bad guys' information." I said, "Well, why?" And they said, "Well, they're the Meta Oculus virtual reality glasses." And I said, "Okay." And they said they haven't been released yet. Well, that was easy to put two and two together. The guy was an Amazon employee, and he was stealing off the truck. Um, and so, but that at the same time, that helped me develop relationships with the Amazon people, and now we have an open flow of communication too. Um, so the time I put into building that relationship with my pawn shop led to more communication with businesses in the community, and now we are all together and we are working together.
That's excellent. I love that story. So, okay, we've talked about the beginning of your career, going around initiating those relationships with each of these business. You've been doing this job for a long time, and a lot of these businesses have been operating for a long time. So, once that relationship is established, how are you keeping it strong year over year?
It's like I said, I mean, first of all, I foster it by complimenting them. If they're giving me good info, I let them know, hey, that was great. That was wonderful information. Um, I'm fighting with the prosecutor, make sure that restitution is included in any plea deal. In fact, the prosecutors are calling me as the cases are coming up to that. Show me in your report where you mention it, because I put it in every report, and I said it's all the way down at the bottom. You'll see it, and then I review it after that to make sure they got it right. Um, I get calls a lot from businesses because they don't expect to get any restitution. I mean, these folks are thieves, so they don't really have a job except being a thief. And all of a sudden, they start getting restitution. They're just tickled pink and are happy to keep working with me because of that.
That makes perfect sense. It goes back to the idea of this being a mutually beneficial relationship. So, I mentioned in your introduction that you have recovered at this point over $2 million in stolen property throughout your career, which is incredible. Can you walk us through a case where a strong business relationship was the key that cracked it open?
Well, I already told you one. I think the other one would be what I took to lovingly call Operation iPhone. That was a couple of years ago. Had one Amazon employee stealing iPhone 15s from one of the facilities here in town. Um, Significant other was in distributing them to other people to sell at ecoATM. ecoATM was the one that contacted me and said, "Hey, we've got a problem," and did some work back and forth with Mike, who you folks should know out there. If you've ever been to a conference, you've met Mike. Um, Within 8 hours, we had everybody identified who were the players in that. If that was the case, I never thought would end because we just kept getting more and more and more. Um, when it was all said and done, we locked up a total of 8 people, recovered $90,000 worth of iPhones, um, which are going to get donated once everything's all said and done, are going to get donated to our Victims Assistance Division to hand out to ladies that need, who have escaped a pretty bad situation, didn't have a phone with them. Now they have a phone that they can call 911 if they have to. Um, so it was a three-headed sword on that one because Amazon had to cooperate, ecoATM had to cooperate, and then I had to bring it all together to create that mess into something everybody could understand.
It's a good one. A lot of moving parts, it sounds like.
Oh, it
Um,
was nonstop.
yeah, yeah, I can't imagine. As Joe mentioned, Mike McCann with ecoATM, he's a buddy of Leads Online as well. If you're not familiar with ecoATM, stay tuned to the end when we demonstrate the Leads Online platform, and you'll get a peek into some more information about that. But Mike is a great resource as well. He is the representative at that company that works directly with law enforcement in instances of stolen property, just like the case that Joe outlined for us. So my next question for you, Joe, when you return stolen property to a victim, does that ever create an opportunity to strengthen your business relationship further?
Oh yeah, yeah. It never fails to bring a smile to my face when I call my victims and tell them, "Hey, I found your stuff," and the shriek of joy on the other end of the phone always brings a smile to my face. When I'm able to get that back, I make sure I tell my business, "Hey, you made that person really happy by doing what you're supposed to do." And it brings a smile to their face too. Now, yeah, they might be out a little money, but it in it helps foster that relationship with us. Plus, it gives them a little bit of pride that we helped. We weren't part of the problem. We were actually part of the solution.
I love that. I'm sure they really appreciate that as well. So my next couple questions are going to be geared toward advice from you towards the other detectives that might be listening with us today. First one is for a property detective who is just getting started with Leads Online. So maybe they're a new user, they're loosely familiar with the product, or they've never logged in. What is the single most important first step they should take, in your opinion?
Play with it. Get in, get used to entering information, putting it in the right place. Come up with a internal list of shorthand because businesses report everything a little bit differently. So um, if it's a lady's yellow gold ring, type in LYG. That helps narrow it down. Um, if it's catalytic converters are a little bit different because there's so many handles for that. But with scrap, with property, come up with pay attention to what's being documented and remember that and use that going forward. Um, and by playing with it, I mean, great one. Get hold of a list of people that have active warrants and just start entering their information just to get used to putting that stuff in. Um, Maintain a good relationship with the folks at Leads. They will tell you more about that system than you can ever find out on your own. Um, and then that's ways that you can really advance yourself using it and then having success.
Excellent. Joe is absolutely right about leaning on the Leads Online team for support as you're getting started, or if you've used Leads Online for a while and just want to familiarize yourself with some of the tools that you might not have incorporated into your regular workflow, call us up. Our team is always available, ready to give you a personalized walkthrough of our system. So at any point, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are here as a resource for you guys. So my next question, as I mentioned, you've had a long career doing what you do. You're nearing retirement, which I have mixed emotions about. Excited for you, but sad for us.
The
Um,
wife is happy, I'll say that.
oh, I'm sure Penny is. Um, so the question is there anything that you wish you had known earlier in your career about building these kinds of community relationships that would have served you?
I fell into the same trap that the businesses were in on it. They were willingly taking this stuff in. They didn't want to tell the police anything, that they were criminal organizations themselves. Now, I've heard that in the past. I know that has occurred in the past. I've said it the conferences repeatedly to guys that I hear that from. I said, well, I'm blessed. I don't have that problem. I've got corporate owned businesses. I have family owned businesses that have been open since the 40s. Um, so I have a different animal to deal with. And when we do have somebody that comes in and starts acting that way, we handle it immediately and take care of that problem. Um, I wish I had known that going into it, that that wasn't true, that the shops are just as criminal as the rest of them. They're not. They're very heavily regulated. I mean, in Fort Wayne alone, they're not only regulated by our ordinance, they're regulated by state law, and they're regulated by federal law. They have to be above board. Especially because I've got Cash America Pawn here in town. That's a nationwide company. I have Lev's Pawn Shop that's in 3 different states, Indiana, Ohio, and Florida. Um, and I have 2 family owned that have been open forever and have always done it right. In fact, the one is directly across the street from my office. If I turn around, look out the window, I'm looking in their front door. They still have records that were handwritten in books that I've actually gone over and looked through trying to find something, and they helped me do it. Um, it's it's common thought, and it needs to go away. It's just not true.
That's good to hear. I'm sure that you're not the only one that's made that assumption, so it's good to know
Right.
that your lived experience says otherwise. And you did touch on this last question a bit, but I'll ask it anyways. What would you say to a skeptical detective who's thinking that maybe investing in these business relationships isn't worth my time? I've got bigger fish to fry.
I can show you the results on my tally sheets. I've kept a yearly tally sheet with how much I've recovered, and one guy recovering $2 million in property, that says something. That says that the businesses want to help. Um, I guess best piece of advice I can give to folks. I mean, here in Indiana, we have something called Hoosier Hospitality. We're cordial to people. Act that way when you go in. Don't go in like you're invading some foreign country. Go in, be polite. If they want to be jerks, let them. You know what? Eventually, they're going to say, "Hey, this guy's decent. We're going to try being decent to him." And the first time you help them out, that will open every door you want. And just go into these relationships thinking that these folks are on my side. I just got to find a way to get them and me to meet in the middle of that side. And once you do that, it just opens up every door you could ever want to have to get information, because they know who the bad people are. They'll tell you about them all day long. They know all the bad person's personal background. They know who they live with, who their parents are, everything that you want to know. And they will give it to you as long as you've engaged some trust with them, and that they can understand that the information they're giving you is going to help your investigation, and you're going to protect them at the same time.
I love that. Thank you for answering. Um, okay, guys, so I have been keeping an eye on the Q&A panel here, and we have not had any questions come in for Joe outside of what I have asked yet. I'm going to give him the floor here again in a second just to leave us with any parting words or stories he'd like to share. Joe is going to stay on throughout the duration of the call as Lindsay is demonstrating Leads Online, so if anything comes to mind that you would like him to answer, we can try and make some time for that here at the end. So again, just a reminder that Q&A panel is available for you. But Joe, I'll give you one last chance to share anything you'd like to convey to the audience, any parting words, any fun stories you want to share with the group.
Well, as we were saying before we all came online here, we were talking, and I said, I've got a million stories. And of course, when somebody asks about them, they all disappear. Um, I will help anybody. If anybody's got a question, they want to talk to me personally, get your pens out. My direct line is 260-427-2235. If I'm at my desk, I will answer that phone, and I will help you with whatever question you have. If you have something, property that ends up in Fort Wayne, I'm your new best friend. I'll go get it and ship it to you. If you are having an issue with a bad guy that happens to live in my jurisdiction, give me everything you got. We'll give it to the right people, and we will see what we can do about locking him up for you. Just keep an open line of communication with your agencies that are nearby, because you all deal with the same bad guy. These guys don't just stay in one neighborhood anymore. They travel. I've recovered guitars from Seattle that were stolen from Fort Wayne. And the reason why is because I knew the guy that ran the pawn detail in Seattle, because we had met at the conferences. And after the 10-minute conversation, catching up with each other, I told him what I was looking for. A week later, I had 3 huge boxes sitting at my desk with all those guitars in it that he went, got, and shipped to me. I've shipped laptops back to Miami. I shipped a gun back to San Antonio that ended up here. I've worked with agencies literally all over the nation, and I treat that the same way I treat my businesses. I'm going to help you as much as I can. If I can't, I'll explain why. So you just need to keep that communication open. And again, if you have questions, you want to talk, 260-427-2235. That's me.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Joe. So again, if you've got any questions for Joe throughout the rest of our time, leave those in the Q&A. We can have him pop back in. But at this time, I am going to hand it over to our customer success manager, Lindsay Malone, who is going to walk you through the LeadsOnline platform that Joe has used to recover all of this stolen property over his years.
Yay, hello. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me go ahead and share my screen really fast. All right, Taylor, y'all can see that?
We can.
Fantastic. Okay, so quick about me. I've worked on the LeadsOnline support side of things. I've worked at the company for about 3.5 years. I was on the LeadsOnline support side for quite a while. And then I moved over to the customer success manager side of the things, or team, I should say. So I know the platform pretty dang well, done a lot of things in here. So my goal today is to just show you guys high level the things that are going to be especially helpful for property crime. So when you log in, it's going to show you all the different tools and features you currently have access to. You would want to go to the LeadsOnline box in the left-hand corner, which is where you would start. And it will show you again all the tools that you have access to, and then our main search platform. A couple tips on this one. You have to put in a case number in order for a search to run. Obviously, a real case number is going to be your best bet, but if you're running something on the fly and you don't have one, the system will technically take whatever you need. So if you had to put 1, 2, 3, test, something like that, it will technically accept it. So just know you have a little options there. I'm going to create let's do a fake number here. Okay. It's going to give you a date range of the last 60 days, but you can go as far back as the year 2015 if needed. And then we archive the data before that. And so just make sure, excuse me, if you need something previous to that, just reach out to our team and we can pull any data for you that you need. Ticket location, you're going to have nationwide, state, county, and city. You can also do it by a customized area. So depending on where you're located, this is our training account, but you could do surrounding states. You would just click and add. You could also do counties, cities, or you could do it by the stores that are within your jurisdiction. Save that search, name it, and then anything you run will be only searching within those areas. Let's close this out here. I'll take it back to nationwide. It's going to always be pulling from usually pawn shops, secondhand dealers, and scrap yards. You can change this. So if you are trying to narrow down your search and only looking for jewelry, for instance, you can take scrap out and just do pawn and secondhand. It's whatever works for you. Usually I leave it open until you want to break it down from there. So this main search that we're on is the standard search. This is your bread and butter. 90% of searches can be ran on here because that includes suspect detail as well as item information, like on the right-hand side. It allows you to run names, date of birth, IDs. You can do serial numbers, IMEIs, all types of stuff. So make sure you're playing around here, just like Joe was saying. If you have something, just start practicing running stuff in here, whether it's warrants out for somebody, it's a serial number that you know of, just put it in because we have over, I think it's like 2 billion transactions in the system. So odds are we're going to have some type of intel that's going to assist you. So for some practice here, let's see, I'm going to do Sarah White. So nationwide, Sarah White has 170 possible items, right, in the last 2 months. And just a little fun thing. So let's say she really spells her name with an H at the end. You could do exact, move it to close, and then it will bump up to 192 because now it's making room for any potential I guess, adjustments to the name or like a letter off or something, that's how you can kind of play with the drop down. But it says Sarah White, 192 possible items. If you click search, it's going to pull up all the results that we have for Sarah White in those last 60 days. The lay of the land here is you're going to get a date and time. You'll get the ticket information, the customer detail, and then the business on the right. A couple of things I always call out is when you're looking next to the ticket number and you see the word pawn or buy, that is telling you the nature of the transaction. So if it says buy, for instance, it means that the business is buying from the customer, because all of the data is coming from the business's perspective. So that might help you as you're looking through this and thinking, did the customer sell it? Did the business, like what's going on here? It's the business buying because it's from their perspective in the system. The ticket numbers, you can pull up an actual receipt window of what happened in the transaction. So you'll have the customer information in the left-hand corner, the business details in the right, physical descriptions, and then the details of the actual transaction with the items involved. Tell you the total, it tells you when the ticket happened, when it was uploaded, all of that right here. If you wanted to create a person of interest in the system, because let's say you're trying to track someone and you want to be notified anytime they pop up, you could do create person of interest here on the ticket. You would add the entry, and then the system would notify you if they pop up nationwide 24/7 at any time. So just know you have those features that will allow the system to do a little bit of that background investigative work for you. You can close out of that. Another one I want to call out here is this really long ticket number. Like we talked about with Joe earlier, this is an ecoATM transaction. If you aren't familiar, they are little kiosks that live in the back of a Walmart, Kroger, Dollar General, Fred Meyer, grocery stores, really. And it's where people can sell their electronics. So the really long ticket numbers are always ecoATMs. You can click on it, and this is the data that you would see. So all the same stuff we talked about before, but then we have all these amazing images that are attached as well. Then we have ID, a signature, and a fingerprint. So much intel is in here, especially with ecoATMs. You additionally get 3 different images or views of the customer. This one, for instance, if I can zoom in slightly, as you can see, it's a bird's eye view that captures quite a bit behind the customer. So we've had success stories where, there's a child abduction case. They are trying to find out what happened to this kid. They're able to come in here and see that the kid is standing in the far back of the person who had abducted them. They're like, hey, stand over here while I sell this really fast. The kid's in the background. There's also a sexual assault case that happened where the woman that was attacked was able to give a physical description of her attacker. He stole her phone in the process. They were able to search just images in the system, which I'll show you in a moment, just how to do that if you don't know exactly who you're looking for, but you maybe know what they look like. They were able to come through, look at images, and find an exact match and solve that case. So ecoATM is awesome. We have a really good partnership with them, and they work incredibly well with our law enforcement partners as well. But again, anything that has a camera on the right has any images that are attached to that person. And that's kind of how we could look at that. You can also, actually, I'm going to save that feature for another tool. I'm going to keep going. If you guys have questions, pop them in there. I know Taylor will let me know. Another thing I wanted to show is if we're running property, you could do like a gold Rolex. And I'm guessing it's going to be way too much. Yeah, it's way too big. So I'm going to pull it down to just the city of Plano. There's only 3 items, but okay, the last 2 months, 3 gold Rolexes. You can click search and we can see hits on those. You'll notice these little boxes here. So these boxes here are person summary pages. It tells you how many transactions we have on file for this Marty Nelson person or anyone in the system. That's how many transactions we have in total so far. If you have a little dark red shield like this is pulling to a real-time crime or lead suite case, which is basically saying that they were involved in cases with other agencies. This one was Carrollton, Texas. We're currently looking at Plano, Texas, so that's where this comes in. If it's red, it usually means they were a suspect. If it's purple, usually a victim. So we'll go back in here. One other quick one I'll show you here is an iPhone. So again, just want to show you this, even though we saw an example previously, is just iPhone 12 or whatever model you're looking for. You can come in here and find all of those iPhone transactions right here. And those are those red shields we saw before. Now jumping ahead, so most people never leave this screen. They're just like, cool, I typed it in, and they don't ever think about all the other tools up here that you can utilize. So I'll show those to you real quick. If you go to resident activity outside jurisdiction, this is pulling exactly like the name says. It is telling you residents that have an address in your jurisdiction. This is based on the address on their ID. It's those people that are going outside the jurisdiction to actively pawn or sell something. So in the last week, we have 655 possible items. So I could click search on here. It will populate all the tickets and the standard results that we've seen before. It's taking its time. Here we go. And so we see this. You'll notice, you might have noticed this little guy right away. So this box kind of stands out. It's pink versus blue, right? So anytime these boxes here, the person summary box is a shade of like that pinkish red, it means that we have some type of law enforcement history that we know of in some way, shape, or form for this individual. So I could click on this guy. This is his page. In my opinion, this is one of the most important tools in the system because it has all their data in one convenient location for you. So for this Chris Mitchell Avery person, it's going to show you all their identity variations that we know of. So any address, any phone number, ID, anything they've ever used in a transaction, we will populate it here. So maybe there's an updated address you didn't know of, or maybe they're, hanging out at a friend's house or, hiding out somewhere. You might be able to find that here. Possible associates. Anything in green is matching our person. So Chris Avery, anything in green is saying that these other people in the system have also reported living at the same address, or they use the same phone number or something like that. So any type of connection that we can find in the system, we will link it and show you. And then last, you're going to get all of their actual activity and transactions in this third section. If they're being followed by anyone in the system, it will show you. So this one is saying in Allen, Texas, he's on a possible burglar watch list here. And remember, we created a person of interest earlier, and I told you it would notify you of them in the system. Same concept. If you click this little not following toggle thing right here, that is the same thing. So if I want to follow this guy and let the system let me know anytime they pop up, you can do so. I'll turn that off. But this is all their transactions. These are any images we have of them on the left-hand side. And then, as I said, because this is considered like a red account, I want to see what their law enforcement history is. I don't want to see their business transactions. So you would just come in here, all these little check mark boxes at the very top. You would uncheck the one that says transactions right here, and it would show you why they're red. So in this case, he was added to a list from Allen, Texas, which we saw, and then he has 3 different lead suite cases, which, as we saw earlier, means that these are cases involved with another agency. So you could click on this little card, and it would tell you more about their involvement in that case and potentially contact information. If I want to call this Detective Bonner guy, I could call him and be like, hey, this guy's in my area. What do you know? Vice versa. So that's kind of what a red account can do. If we're going back over to our main list that we were seeing, the activity outside jurisdiction, one thing I wanted to point out is there is a map these items feature in the right-hand corner. When you click on that, it shows you a visual representation of where your residents could be traveling. So anything in the blue icon represents the business address that they're going to. Anything in green right here is going to be where that person's address is according to their ID. But if I want to come in here and say, okay, who's going all the way up here to Missouri, I could click on that, click on view tickets, and open up the receipt window that we saw before and see, who is my resident that's going all the way up there. So sure, maybe they moved and that's possible, but they also could be traveling outside jurisdiction lines for a reason. So this is helpful to see it on a visual area. You could also zoom into a neighborhood. If you have a lot of garage thefts, for instance, you could go in and see This is a neighborhood that's getting hit up all the time. Who lives in this area? Which businesses are nearby that are getting hit up around this time frame? And that could also help you come to conclusions about what's going on. Okay. Next is repeated transactions. This one's really helpful for property as well. So it's designed to pull a report that shows you multiple of the same types of things that are being pawned or sold. So this could be firearms, copper, jewelry, iPhones, catalytic converters, whatever you wanted to do. You could put it right here and it would run it. For today, I'm going to run it kind of open so you can see a variety of results, but that's kind of how you would use this one. I'll click search. And this one does take a little bit longer usually to pull, but if it says there's more than 50, we can click OK. But this is how it looks. So we see the person summary pages very clearly on this. This report format, there's two ways I would recommend running this. You can either click total amount on the far right-hand corner, and it's going to pull it from highest to lowest. So in the last week, Jordan Avery has made almost $3,000. In the ticket column, you could click the number 2 and just see on high level what types of items has he been selling or pawning that would bring him to the top. So right now it looks like a lot of jewelry for this guy. Hey Joe, there's that LYG you talked about, right? There it is. So yeah, you could do it by that and just sort through just all these different lists. In this area, we have a lot of jewelry stores, so we'll say that a lot in Plano, but here's a lot of like Apple products and a lot of different computer things. Again, you might see catalytic converters are here. You'll see all types of stuff. You can also sort this by businesses. So if you sort it from highest to lowest, I think this one is also interesting because now you're looking at a pattern of people that are actively going to several locations to be able to, I guess, pawn or sell off what they're trying to do. So instead of just doing a one and done, I want to just get my money and go, they're actively going to multiple locations. So this person went to 7 businesses in a week. So we could look at the 7 here and then see all the stuff. So there's a microwave oven, there's portable speakers, there's all types of stuff in here. So this can just give you ideas of patterns that people are doing. We had a detective in here that was using this exact tool and found a bunch of brand new iPhones being sold, thought it was weird, followed the trail, and sure enough, it was someone that was working in a warehouse in Walmart and stealing a bunch of phones and selling them. So lots of crazy stuff. I'm going to pause for a second and check my little questions here. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Give me a sec. Am I missing anything, Taylor? I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anything particular.
We've got one question in the chat about the demo in particular. Somebody asked if we have a cheat sheet that recaps all of this juicy feature information that you're demonstrating for us.
Good question. We don't have a cheat sheet, but we do have this video training library on the left-hand side. If you're wanting to get just training on each individual tool, we have that built in. But if you're an agency where you guys would like a tailored training to your exact agency, we can also set that up as well. You would just reach out to our team and then we could schedule it for you guys. We could do it unit specific depending on how large you are, but we can do that. And then you can always ask us questions, of course, directly if you're like, what does this mean or how does this work? Those would be my best recommendations for resources that are ongoing or something that you can follow up with after this, if that answers that question.
One other resource that we can provide to you upon request if you shoot an email over to support@leadsonline.com is a very trim, you could call it a cheat sheet. It's a little quarter sheet that briefly summarizes each of these colorful icons at the top of your search page. We can provide that to you. A lot of people like to tape that underneath their monitor just as a quick reference guide to remember what each button does. It's not going to give you as detailed of a breakdown as those training videos will, so that's definitely going to be where you'll want to go for some more extensive how-to, but it's a good reminder if you need to jog your memory on what each feature does.
Yes. Yeah. So if you get a cheat sheet like that, then yes. As far as all the other little things, we might have to do a little bit more one-on-one, but absolutely, Taylor's right. That's a great idea. Any other questions before I keep chugging that y'all can see? I think we're good.
I think you are good to keep moving.
Cool beans. Okay. The NCIC hits feature right here. So if your agency submits stolen items, stolen serialized items to NCIC, it links up and cross-references against Leads Online. So if that item does populate in our system nationwide, we'll basically provide what we call an NCIC hit and say, hey, this item matches what you guys entered in the NCIC. Is this your item? This is what the page would look like with your actual agency. It would be connected to the ORI and you could run it. I have an example of the NCIC hit right here. We had to just obfuscate the data to protect it, but this is essentially what it would look like. You'd have your standard business transaction detail in white. And then this big green section is what was entered into NCIC. And the system is saying, is this a match? The things that we can see on here is it tells you the case number, date of theft, the serial number in question, and then all the details of the item itself. Right here in the middle, it says SD 6.00, if you can see that. That is our very scientific term. It stands for slam dunk. It's an internal rating system that goes from 0 to 6, with 6 being a guaranteed hit. So when it hits that 6, you know it is an actual hit. Anything 3 or above, you'll be notified by in Leads Online and by email. But this one is an example of an actual hit. It was a 6, and then that's what it would look like on your side of things when you're actually looking at an NCIC hit. So we'll keep going. I'm going to skip a couple of the ones that are not necessarily as property related. The quick one right here is person of interest activity. This one is designed to be more of a collaborative list. It's going to show you people of interest that you are following, POIs that other people in your agency are following, and then POIs that are actually coming into your jurisdiction that maybe someone else is following. So an example would be this one, the Bainbridge Island, Washington PD. They are following this Wyatt Cabot guy. And most likely the reason he's on this list is because Wyatt had come into our jurisdiction and did business at a Plano location, and now it's in our area. So that's why it's showing us. And then it would do the same thing on that other agency's page. So it kind of helps just you guys collaborate and connect and see activity that's happening with people that are being watched in general. So that's what this is used for. And then eBay search, if you ever have a case that pops up with eBay or OfferUp, you can always run them in here. I'm going to try to do this real fast if I can remember. So for eBay, for instance, if I got that right, you can run like a member's actual ID in the system, like their user ID, because they're all unique. And if that person has data in Leads Online, we'll be able to populate that information. So we put in that eBay username, and now we know the person's name, email, their phone number, and their location. If we click on this 24, it's going to show us data that's within Leads Online, and it's not showing us right now because it's a training account, but the phone number will pull up and link up to transactions that are linked to this Lewis person or to that phone number that have happened in Leads Online. So like the person summary page we saw before, that's kind of how it would look. And then if we go up here to OfferUp, they ask for a bit more information, but they also give you a bit more. So I'm going to pull this back real quick. Let's do theft of bicycle. Just say stolen. I love all caps. For a lot of high energy. Okay. And then so basically you'd fill this out. OfferUp does let you look up email, phone number, user ID, lister ID, all of that. But I'm going to do keyword for right now. And I'm going to run this and look for stolen bikes that are in my area. And they kind of give you a few different things on here. So it's going to show you actual listings within OfferUp. There will be a lat long link of where the item was located, like where the person was located when they uploaded this bike to OfferUp. So you could click on it. It's going to put a location on the map. And in this case, it's landing on like a specific house in a neighborhood. So you could do it that way. You could look at the seller's information. So maybe, and sometimes they have actual pictures of their faces. They have their full name on there, their email. It's going to show you usually an internet provider. The long link like we talked about, it's having a little bit of a hard time pulling up, but okay, that's okay. It might be because it's the training one, but it can give you that details. And then if you do the view item, it will show you the actual link within OfferUp that the public can see. So if you ever had something pop up with OfferUp cases, oh, there it is. So there it is. Okay, so this is the Patrick. This is seller information it was trying to pull. It gives you IP address as well, seller history, all types of stuff. They do have a way where you can contact OfferUp directly about your case because they have additional information on their platform that could be helpful for you. They also have a law enforcement portal that you can use to soft block accounts, whitelist, all types of stuff. Those are up here. Search images. I'm trying to speed along here just for time's sake. On here, this is what we were talking about earlier where I said that case where they just were able to find that sexual assault guy, suspect with images only. So we're able to come in if you do search images and you do picture of the customer, because I'm running the system and I'm saying, I want to see only pictures. You're not looking at tickets, you're looking at pictures only. So I'm going to say iPhone 12. I'll do state of Texas, and then we'll run this. And it's just going to show us pictures that involve an iPhone 12. And this is how they were able to find it. So let's say they go through and they're like, okay, the person I'm looking for is wearing an orange, shirt, XYZ. They could come in and just look at images only. You could also do it by item. So let's say you're looking for jewelry, but it is incredible. Like you don't have a serial number, so it's hard to narrow those down sometimes. I'm just going to put diamond ring in here just for the training. Oh, wait, actually, I just realized I need to change it to item instead of customer. So now I want to see pictures of the item, not just the person who sold it or pawned it. I want to see the item itself. Could come in here and it should just pull up pictures of diamond rings and we could look and match them that way. So lots of different ways you can use the system. The last thing that I would say on the left-hand side is this transaction monitor that not a lot of people know about, but this is really designed for business compliance, but it will show you all the businesses that were reporting in your jurisdiction. And you could click on a ticket and drill down to every single ticket that that business has sent to us. And so you could pull in and see what are all the tickets that they sent us on the 30th of May. Click on all the dates, get down to that day, and then you could open every single ticket and click through. So if you have a certain day or like a time range you're looking through or anything like that, you can come through and look at it that way. You won't be able to do this with businesses that are outside your jurisdiction as far as drilling down goes, but you can with the ones that report in your area. But any business that reports to LeadsOnline nationwide, if they're reporting and you're searching the system, their data is in there. So you just have to pull it up by search. You just can't drill down this way, if that makes sense. But that's how you would do that on Transaction Monitor. And then if you had any holds on items within the system, you could do police holds, property requests here, and it would show you the status of where that item was when you submitted the hold and all of that. And so those are probably the main property related things I would hit on. Just know as well, you have your settings feature in the left-hand corner. If you had to change notifications on who you're following or things like that, your saved searches, it will show you those things. But that's quickly high level of what you could do in there. Do y'all have any questions? Anything else I can touch on, Joe, that I missed?
Well, I mean, I've had success with all that. Literally all of those. And it's just such a wealth of information at your fingertips, which is why I say get in there and play with it. With the images, anymore, when we have people reporting stolen jewelry, one of our first questions is, do you have pictures, and send them to us. And then we just get into the images, the basic descriptions, and just compare the pictures and where are they. With your transaction monitor, that's a great way to notice if your business is falling out of compliance with your local laws. They all know I have access to that, so that's kind of a thing that I'm able to hold over their heads to make sure they're reporting. For your entries, I typically, when I'm training up new detectives using LeadsOnline, I tell them to search by the driver's license number or the identification card number, because they have to enter that. They have to present an ID. And so, I mean, that's just, it drills right down to that human being. And it can kind of accelerate your working on that case. And like I said before, you want to develop your shorthand when searching for descriptions. One thing I have noticed with iPhones, if you search iPhone 15, the algorithm hits on the 5, and so you'll get iPhone 5s too. So you have to really pay attention to what you're looking at when you get that back. Or, I mean, if you don't want to see all that, include the word not and 5, and then that'll eliminate that as they keep coming out with new models.
Awesome. Let's see. Are there more questions that we didn't address, Taylor?
I don't think we've got any more questions in relation to the LeadsOnline product, but we did have a couple come in for Joe during the demo. So Joe, I'm going to hand it back over to you for a couple more questions. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for the demonstration.
No
Joe,
problem.
we got a question from Nicole at Aurora, Colorado PD. She asks, we have a single detective and a support specialist assigned to our pawn detail. The detective is retiring this year. Any advice on how to convince command staff of the importance of the detail and that they should assign a new detective?
Yeah, that one hit home when I saw it because I'm retiring December 30th of 27. And at the moment, they don't have anybody to replace me. But the best thing I can explain and how I've explained to my command staff is my stats and the relationships I have. And now my businesses are asking, who's taking over for you? So as we get a little bit closer, I'm going to enlist them to start a little bit of contact with the powers that be and say, hey, we want somebody just like him to run that. So you need to show that there's a need for it. And how you do that is, this is how many cases I had my hands in. This is how much property I've recovered, dollar amount. You should be doing that anyway to convince your agency to keep having LeadsOnline in your budget, so you maintain your accounts. But at the same time, if you've got great relationships with your businesses, get them on board too, to say, hey, we love working with this detective. We would love to work with another detective just like them. We need to find somebody. Now, the big challenge is going to be find somebody in your agency that's ready to come off the street, sit at a desk. And with the younging of police agencies, that could be a little bit more difficult, but you got to find somebody.
That's great advice. Thanks, Joe. Something that I'll add here from the LeadsOnline side of the fence. So if there is ever a situation where you need support preparing materials or working through language on how to present to command on the need for LeadsOnline specifically, I can't speak to staffing the way that Joe can. He's got that experience. But if you are ever in need of language or materials that convinces your command staff of the need for access to our platform, that's something that we are always available to help with. We can provide you with quick high-level overview materials that you can give to your chief so that he can quickly digest and understand what LeadsOnline can provide for you and why you need it. So we are always here to provide that angle as well, if that could ever be helpful. All right, Joe, we've got another question. This is a callback to your mention of support that you've provided across the country in some of this property recovery. Somebody asked, how were those guitars that you mentioned identified?
Okay, so in that one, we had an 18-year-old girl steal her father's guitars. I recovered 2 from Chicago, and then all of a sudden I was getting NCIC hits out in Seattle. So we had not only a known suspect, we also had serial number information. So when about 2 days after she disappeared out of Chicago, all of a sudden, boom, Seattle started popping up. And she wasn't there long, and she had already drawn the attention of the Seattle PD, and they already knew who she was. So it wasn't too hard to get those guitars back. And then pretty soon she came back too. It was it was just a nice little where the stars aligned. We had everything we needed. We knew who did it, and we had the identifiers for the guitars.
I love it. That's a cool story. So we've got one more question from a LeadsOnline support team member. Amy asks if you have any advice that you can give to law enforcement agencies that would like to draft or implement an ordinance like Fort Wayne has to have local businesses report. She says that we get this question a lot and that your perspective and advice would be valuable.
So when we created our ordinance way back when, we reached out to other agencies. So we reached out to Indianapolis, Evansville, Terre Haute, that kind of thing. And then we drew out of that what would apply to us. And then 2 years ago at the request of City Council, I completely rewrote it and brought it into the 21st century. Made it a lot easier for everybody to understand where they fell in the ordinance. And in fact, I have a new business that's going to be opening this week. I've already had contact with that guy. He had already found the ordinance, and he got to that through another business who said, hey, look, first of all, you need to call this guy. Second of all, you need to go to this website and look at the ordinance. So it's one of those things. Reach out to your neighboring agencies to see if they have a local ordinance. If not, get hold of me. Leads can give you my contact info, and I'll email you a copy of ours, and you can work out of that.
That's great. Thanks, Joe. We've got one other comment from Amy that helps answer a question we got previously about the cheat sheet or additional information on those features that Lindsay ran us through. One other resource that is worth calling out, if you are on the quick launch page within LeadsOnline, so that page that you'll land on to navigate throughout our platform, that screen will also give you an overview of what each feature can do. On the top left of that screen, you'll see a grid icon that will take you there to that quick launch home page, it's called. So another thing on the list of ways to reacquaint yourself with those features that Lindsay showed us today. I think that is it for questions in the Q&A panel. And I know we've gone a little bit over our time here, so I think I'll go ahead and wrap us up. Thank you, Joe, so much for joining us here today. Your wisdom is invaluable, and we are lucky to have partnered with you for as long as we have. Thank you, Lindsay, for taking the time out of your day to demonstrate with us. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions about the functionality of the product, please reach out to support@leadsonline.com. If you are not currently a LeadsOnline user, if your agency does not have access today, you can reach out to sales@leadsonline.com for next steps on that process. So thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And everybody out there,
everybody.
stay safe.
Yes. Have a great Monday, you guys. Bye.